Welcome to Guiding Echoes, the show that loves to inspire and empower you to awaken your intuitive abilities and develop your psychic skills. I'm your host, Nicole Antoinette. Join me as we dive into exciting topics such as spirit communication, energy healing, intuition, consciousness, and so much more. The fun begins right now. Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Guiding Echo Show. We are running out the gate like lions because Lionsgate was yesterday. How'd you like that intro? That was pretty spiffy, right? So I'm curious, did you guys remember to set your intentions yesterday? Did you make your wishes? Did you figure out what you wanted to manifest? I hope you did, because I believe that we're all in this amazing vortex right now where we can manifest anything that we want. In fact, when I was tuning into the collective earlier today and asking Source and asking my guides and angels, what is the message for today? They said to hustle. And what was interesting was, this is how cool the universe can be. I was cheating a little bit. So instead of doing a straight channel, I was like, I'm going to use some of my cards. So I chose the Sacred Creators Oracle, started shuffling those cards, and I wanted to see what message the universe would have in store for us this week. And wouldn't you know it, I picked a card that said this spark of hustle. So what I had channeled and what I had picked up on intuitively came up in the cards. Now, did I manifest that? Was it a cool synchronicity that I manifested through my thoughts? I don't know. I like to think that it was the universe saying, hey guys, it is time to move. It is time to take action on your dreams. Even if they don't manifest completely this week, you're going to start seeing the building blocks, the opportunities, the resources coming to you. So take appropriate action. You got to love it when you get readings like that and when you get messages from that, because how often over the last few months have we channeled messages that said, okay, it's time to rest or be patient. And I don't know about you, but I think patience is stupid. I want what I want when I want it, which is usually now. But unfortunately, the universe doesn't always work that way. So I get that patience is supposedly a virtue, but I like it when I pull messages that say hustle and tell you, hey, good stuff is coming. So speaking of good stuff that's coming, we've got a great guest for you tonight. Her name is Kimberly Gauthier. She is the mastermind behind the Keep the Tail Wagging blog. I have known Kimberly personally for a long time, so I might be a little biased when I sing her praises, but I've known her way back when I was a dog trainer. Did you guys know that about me? I used to have a dog training business called Amazing Mutts, and I used only positive techniques, basically games and clickers, to train dogs how to sit, stay, basically listen, and how to be good little furry family members. And it was a joy. So we're going to go ahead and bring her on to the show. Kimberly, welcome.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So not only are you a dog blogger, you've also had some really interesting intuitive experiences with your pets.
Yes, I know. And you're my only friend that I can actually dive deep into these things with too. It's so much fun. But yeah, I think, it's to start this conversation just kind of as a downer, but I don't look at it that way. When a dog passes on, there are two things that many pet parents wait for, and that is for our dog to come back in our dreams or to get a feather. Just randomly out of the blue, you get a feather. And I've had both happen with my dog Blue when he passed. And you remember that. I was just like, I was calling Nicole, like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I was walking in downtown Seattle and got a beautiful white feather flew down in front of me. And you would think, oh, well, that's common. They have pigeons down there. They have seagulls down there. But where I was is just it wasn't in a place where you would see a feather. And the feather was it was beautiful and big and just wasn't. It was special. So I actually still have that feather today somewhere. And when Sydney passed away in 2020, she was my rock. She was my heart dog. And I was having a hard time because she had cancer. And so it was hospice. But, when it was time to let her go, I just said, just come back and let me know you're okay. And within 3 days, I felt her jumping on the bed. That was the first thing. The next night, something that she used to always do is she would never just jump on the bed. She would come and stand next to the bed until she got my attention. And then I would be like, come on. And she would jump on the bed. So the next night, she was standing next to the bed. And then I still felt her jump on the bed. And now, every few months or so, she comes to me in my dreams. And it's so, I mean, for people who have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about, where it feels so real, where you can smell them and you feel their coat. And there's things even about your dog that you didn't remember, but it's like, oh, that's right. And what's funny is that Johan, he had his first dream experience this year with
Oh,
Blue.
wow.
Blue passed away back in 2013, and he was telling me about it, and he got really choked up because he was like, I just kept saying over and over again, is this real? Is this real? And it is. You can tell they're everything. It's there right there, and it's kind of a cool situation.
It absolutely is. And oh my gosh, I can't believe Blue's been gone since 2013. I
Right?
can't believe it's been that long. Yeah,
It
because I
has.
remember when you called me, and
Mhm.
I remember like even 2 years after that, I was like, "Are you hearing from Blue?" Because for some reason he came up in my mind, and you're like, "Funny you should ask."
Yeah. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
he interrupted a lot of sessions, that I'd had with pet communicators over the years. It would be so funny because he would like bully his way into a session where I'm like trying to understand. It's Rodrigo, who is my oldest and my first dog, and basically the dog that helped inspire the creation of Keep the Tail Wagging, the books that I've published, everything that I've done when it comes to raw feeding and educating people about feeding fresh food is because of Rodrigo. So I used to do, probably an annual. I mean, you and I talked every year, and then I would do like an annual pet communication session as content for a blog post. And it would always be with Rodrigo, but Blue would nose his way into that conversation just to say hi, how you doing? And, it was kind of cool because they're always here. When Blue passed away that day, I felt him jump on me, and this was like within hours of us losing him. But those the type of things where when you're thinking about them, I always think that when I'm thinking like I just cannot get Sydney off my mind, I know that she's in the house, just hanging
yeah,
out, enjoying herself, and then she'll go back to doggy heaven. But
right.
yeah, it is kind of cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, years ago, I had a boyfriend whose name we will not reveal, but I was dating someone, and he had a basset hound by the name of Sarah. And Sarah ended up getting very, very sick with I can't remember the name of the disease, but it was just, oh God, it was awful because it was like this slow descent. So we were
Mm,
watching her get really thin, and we were watching her basically lose her marbles and be, end up with that doggy dementia. And so we got to the point where we had to set that appointment to have her put down.
mhm.
And it wasn't an issue to take her to her vet because she loved her vet and she actually loved the vet's office. So it was, I think, actually kind of nice and comforting for
Mhm.
her to be there with not just me and my boyfriend at the time, but the vet staff, and like almost everyone came in to put this
Oh,
dog down because they loved her so much. And I remember when she breathed her last breath, I saw her out of the corner of my eye jumping up and down and barking. And I looked over and I still saw her. And I felt like immediately the sense of relief, but also confusion and a little frustration because my boyfriend didn't believe in any of this. So if I were to tell him, oh my gosh, Sarah's right here, she's super excited, she's doing great, he would just like probably would have been really angry with me, like, you're just trying to make me feel better, or how dare you make this about you. But I think that when you have a close relationship to whether it's your dog or your cat or your horse, I think that people are able to form a loving bond with animals that you
Mhm.
can't get, sorry to say, with another human,
Yeah.
because animals know how to give that unconditional love. And I have found as a medium that it's really through that strand of love that keeps that relationship alive through death, you know, on the
Mhm.
other side. And so I find that a lot of times when people don't believe in any type of spirit communication, or they don't believe in afterlife, they'll change their mind after two experiences. One, when they live in a place that's so haunted they can't sleep and they get scared and it runs them off. That's option one. Or two, a lot of times it seems when their pet comes back, so they'll feel like their cat brush against their leg, or
Mhm.
that, like you were saying, you feel your dog jump up on them. And so it's really fascinating to hear these different stories and the similarities that people have when it comes to visit from the animal kingdom. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I have 4 dogs now, Rodrigo, Scout, Zoe, and Apollo. And because of those experiences, and it's funny because we hire animal communicators to help us communicate with our animals when we can actually be doing that on our own. And we do
Yeah.
do it on our own on a daily basis. We just don't call it that. We're reading their body language, they're reading our body language, our energy. We're constantly having these conversations with our dogs. And I really recognized this when Scout was diagnosed with cancer. And it's been a year and a half since he was diagnosed. He's still doing really well. But at one point in time, he gave me the message that you need to stop treating me like I'm sick, because it's like every time you do that, I feel like you're treating me like I'm sick. And I know that, a lot of people will say with animals, they don't know that they have cancer. They don't know that they're sick. So you don't treat them like they're sick. And, don't tell them, they'll be fine. And so I can't tell you, it wasn't words that came to me. It was his body language and his energy, and just a clear message, like a knowing that
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing is bothering him, and this is why. And I respected that. And we went on. And it was funny because at the moment, I wondered how many times did I get a knowing, but I dismissed it because that's crazy. I can't talk to him. I'm not a psychic. I can't talk to my animals. This is insane. But the feeling of it was exactly how I've had people describe it to me. But different, because some people say that animals communicate in pictures and things, and maybe I didn't see any pictures. I just knew it. I didn't hear any words. I just knew. I knew. It was like it had already, like the conversation had already happened, and now I just know that going forward, he doesn't want me to do this. And it was easy to accept, and I love that, and I hope other people can do that as well, because if you have a sick dog, it's so tempting, especially when it's a cancer diagnosis. It's so tempting to curl into ourselves, make it about us, and start mourning our dog when our
Yeah.
dog is still standing there going, hey, are we going for a walk today? Or I'm a little hungry. Can I have a snack? Instead of appreciating that right now in this moment, my dog is doing fine. Yes, he has this diagnosis, but my dog is doing fine. And it's so important to save all the mourning and the crying until your dog is gone, because there's going to be plenty of time to do that when your dog is gone. But going forward, like in the moment, just appreciate having your dog. And this clicked to me with Scout, but it also reminded me of the number of people who their dogs get sick and they're like sent home, like you have 2 more weeks. And so we're just going to send you home so you can say goodbye to your dog. And 6 months later, their dog is still there.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, because they stop focusing on the sickness, they just accept it and they just enjoy their dogs. And so that's what I try to do with all of my dogs.
So a lot of times when humans get sick, one of the things that stubborn people hate is to be treated like they're sick. Kind of like you were saying with Rodrigo. He was like, "Don't treat me like I'm sick. I don't like it." Do you think that animals sometimes have that same sense of autonomy that people do?
Um, I do, but just in a different way. It's just one of those where, like when I'm sick, I've had COVID, and it sucks because it knocks you down into the
It
ground. You don't
does.
want to do anything.
Yeah.
And my dogs recognize it, like, oh, she's sick, sick. So I have very active dogs that like to go running and swimming and all. And our property is basically created for them. And when I was sick, they were just in the bed with me. and they were perfectly fine with just, this is what we need right now, and this is what we're doing. But if I'm fine, my dogs are looking at me like, yeah, you look fine. I don't understand why we're still sitting in the house. It's like, yeah, so we need exercise. And they're not willing to allow me to get away with treating them any type of way. And so I I follow their lead. And this just goes back to Rodrigo. He's 12 and a half years old now. He'll be 9 years old in October. Scout is technically a geriatric dog. He has arthritis. He has EPI, which is a digestive issue. But he's doing great. And a lot of people look at him and they think he's 4, maybe 5 years old, because he doesn't look like a geriatric dog. He doesn't act or walk or anything like a geriatric dog. And the same thing with Scout. People look at Scout. If I tell them that he has cancer, they assume that he just got diagnosed, not that he was diagnosed a year and a half ago. And he's stable, and he's been stable for a while. And I honestly think that, I've done so many different things that explain why my dogs are doing as well as they do. But I think one part of the puzzle is not treating them like they're sick, and just treating them like they are today. If they're not feeling good, then we'll address that. But today they're feeling great. So let's have a great day.
So aside from treating them as if they are healthy and they're not sick, what are some other things that you started doing when you got this diagnosis?
Well, all of my dogs are raw fed. I've done that since 2013. And then 2013. Gosh, that was a long time ago. So all of my dogs are raw fed. I credit that to Scout, because he basically was transitioned to raw at 6 weeks of age. Rodrigo was transitioned at 3 years. I switched Rigo over because of his digestive issues. He had environmental allergy. He was just a sick dog. And actually his veterinarian said that he wouldn't live long past his 3rd birthday. So yeah, the petty part of me wants to knock on the vet's office and just walk my dog in and be like, yeah, so how you like me now? I know that vet, if I would have said, well, I'm going to switch to raw, then he would have probably thrown me out with torches, get away from me. But because he's a very, very traditional guy. But, that judgment or that diagnosis is what spurred me on to go, no, that's not acceptable. A dog should live longer than 3 years. That's insane. And I started learning about raw feeding, and that started me on this journey. So he's doing great. But the same thing is, everything that I learned in those 3 to 4 years, as Scout and Zoe joined us, because Scout and Zoe are siblings, I just immediately started them on raw. So I think that's one thing. 2, I do not subject my dogs to unnecessary chemicals. So I'm lucky to live in an area of the country where we don't have a huge flea issues. We don't have heartworm here. So I can use natural flea and tick repellents. I don't use anything chemical on my dogs. When it comes to cleaning, I'm very careful about the choices I make. Let's be honest. A lot of the natural cleaning products are just crap, but white vinegar goes a long way. Yes, your house is going to smell like you've been making Easter eggs for a little bit, but white vinegar goes a long way. But I do a lot of stuff with fresh food, lots of exercise, and some supplementation with Scout. He has more supplementation because he's on Chinese herbs. So we're doing traditional Chinese medicine now to treat his cancer after a year and a half of doing traditional. But, and I do believe in both traditional and holistic. But, I think one thing that is part of that is my energy and my attitude. So I have had anxiety and depression, gosh, for my life. I think, since early teens. And I had to work on that. So I really, really got into therapy after we lost Blue, and just to have a better understanding of what my triggers were, and learning how to just basically maneuver through life without losing my mind. But now it's a matter of really being aware, because I think, this is probably something that you address all the time, is that as human beings, we just allow our minds to run roughshod over us.
Oh, yeah.
If we attract what we think and feel, we are like children given the keys to a Maserati, and we're just tearing up and down the road with our thoughts and wondering why our lives are such a mess. And so I had to really rein that in and really start focusing on my energy. And what inspired me to do this is, I think you and everyone watching can experience a time like if you, let's say you worked in an office and there's that one employee that walks into the office that changes the entire mood. Like everyone is now cranky and on edge and stuff because of that one employee. And everyone's like, why are they even still working here? Because they ruin everything. They're always mad. They're always, that. And I didn't want to be that employee to my dogs. So if I'm in a really bad mood and I notice my dogs are sort of shying away from me, or I have one dog, if you guys have, anyone watching has had multiple dogs, you've probably experienced when one dog passes on, sort of like there's a shuffle in roles. And so Sydney was my, emotional support dog, unofficially. She decided to take on that role and she was truly my rock. So when she passed on, that there was an opening there and Zoe took that on. And so when I am feeling sad, depressed, anxious, Zoe will do everything to get my attention to bring me back into the moment. And if I'm resistant to it, she will go, this is a 64-pound dog. She will crawl into my lap and start scratching at my face because she is like, and licking me just to sort of like, wake up, you're doing it again. And she has taught me to really stay in the moment, but also to think about, what energy am I bringing into the house? Because I know that I don't like to be around negative people. Why would I subject my dog to that? So I changed what I watch on television. I had to give up my much beloved Real Housewives because those ladies were like, that's unhealthy for me. And I watch a lot of comedy and just shows that I enjoy that make me happy and, listen to a lot of music and just basically focus on being a happier, more in present person for my dogs.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to something you said earlier because you mentioned that you wanted to be a good employee for your dogs, and I think that your dogs would just love the idea that that you are their employee.
Feels like.
So I'm just curious to know, like, have they given you a promotion? Is there a bonus that you're getting? Like, what's up?
I know, that's what I feel like. I woke up this morning, I was so out of it this morning. And I was so thrown off, and I'm putting harnesses on 2 of the dogs because the dog walker's coming. By the way, the dog walker's coming tomorrow. And the dogs are looking at me confused, like, why are we wearing harnesses? And are we going someplace? But usually when I put on harnesses, everyone gets really excited because that means we are going someplace, but they recognize that something wasn't quite right. So they were all just like, okay, and letting me lift their paws and stuff. But then I was just like, okay, it's Tuesday. So I took everything off and put it away. But it's actually hilarious because I spend so little time in the kitchen cooking for myself that whenever I go into the kitchen, eventually I will just be surrounded by dogs because they know that what I'm doing is for them. And there are times when Johan has come home and he's like, oh, that smells good. And then he's like, never mind. Because he knows
it's not for you, bud.
Like, oh, go to Mod Pizza. No, this is for the dogs.
So one of the things that I find interesting with the raw food diet is, first of all, let's be honest, it's highly controversial. It's highly controversial, even though dogs were not eating manufactured dried dog food 100 years ago. So really this dried dog food is a newer invention, and it's actually made out of animal scraps. So things that the FDA do not approve for human consumption is allowed for the most part for animal consumption. So let that sink in. All of you who are feeding your dogs that dried food, whenever it says chicken meal or beef meal, you need to ask yourself, what's the meal part? What's the byproducts? So I'm aware that raw feeding is highly controversial, but it also goes back to a dog's natural diet. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was thinking about earlier, because I've got a weird brain, which my friend Tammy's always saying about herself, I've got a weird brain. So like I borrowed that because I'm like, hey, I think I've got a weird brain too. No wonder we get along so good. There's a belief that for people, different things we eat affect our chakras. So if you want your root chakra to be a little stronger or more abundant or more vibrant, you would eat more red fruits. So you might eat like watermelon, which I'm going to eat watermelon, whether I think my root chakra needs it
I
or
love
not. Like
watermelon.
that's some yummy stuff. I love
Delicious.
watermelon. Different berries, things like that. And so I'm kind of curious about, do you think that feeding raw meat kind of has the same um, energetic effect on animals? Like, have you noticed that at all?
Yes, but in a different way. I actually look at food energetics based on traditional Chinese medicine. So I look at the temperature of foods, and I don't mean by warming it like in the microwave temperature. I mean, it's hot, warming, cooling, hot, cold, as far as foods are concerned. So, for instance, it's August, although it's a cool day today, and I'm so grateful for it. We've been having some very hot days, and I would not feed venison, which is a hot protein, to my dog in August because it's just too hot. And then if you take that and you cook a hot food, you make it even hotter. So if you notice, like, for instance, if it's on a cold day and you have a dog that's panting and is like laying next to the door or only lay on the hardwoods or the tile, and they are just not comfortable. And maybe this dog also has maybe some arthritis, even though it's like a young dog, it's limping or something. So it has inflammation in the joints, or has skin issues or allergy issues. Those type of things all combined give you a hot dog. They also have digestive issues. They might have some behavioral issues because they're uncomfortable all the time. And how would you feel if you were constantly in pain? You'd be a little cranky. Well, that was Rodrigo. He is a hot dog. It is a cool day and he is over there panting right now. And so I can't feed him venison unless it's the dead of winter because it would just make him too hot. So that's kind of how I look at the food. But then even beyond that, different foods feed different areas of the system. So you would want to add, like, for instance, if I want to get the chi flowing, and I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but if I basically want to get things are a little stagnant in the system and I need to break it up and get it moving, then I might reach for something that would be categorized as hot to make that happen. I would just basically try and do something different to cool my dog down. So, opening all the windows or closing them and putting on the AC or something like that just to help the dog along, or combating a hot something with something a little cooler to make it just so that it's warming and it's not so hot. So it's going to take a little longer to work, but still my dog is comfortable, if all that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense to me, but I've got a weird brain, so so it makes perfect sense to me. So, how do you feel your intuition helped lead you to that path for your dogs? Because this isn't just something that you kind of tried and you played with it and saw some results. And when everyone was healed and doing better, you went back to cooked food or commercial food. Like, you realize that this is something to stick to. And I think that, obviously I know your story, so I'm leading you with this question. But how did your intuition play a role in all that?
I think it was going back to the knowing, this level of confidence that, yes, I am on the right track. It's and the excitement too. There's something exciting when you find something that you are just fascinated by and interested in. And I just kept going down this path. And I think I started this just at the perfect time because not many people online were writing about or talking about raw feeding. It wasn't a big topic, but there were some people out there, raising the flag saying, hey, kibble, by the way, going back to my temperature, since kibble is cooked 5 times, no matter what the protein is, all of it is very hot, which is why so many dogs out there do have trouble with kibble because it's just a very hot, over-processed food.
Wow.
So even if you added some fresh food to you don't even have to kick kibble to the bowl. A lot of people, it's a hard, change for a lot of people. If I took a kibble and just basically chose a duck, because that's a cooling protein. So I'm going to chose a duck recipe or maybe a fish recipe, and then add in some ground beef to it, cooked ground beef to it, or some pureed vegetables. There's so many things you can do to cool that down and make it a little healthier. But that aside, I get a kick out of this. I can talk about this all day long. I have 2 books that I've written about it. I just almost this close to finishing my 3rd book on it. When I find people who raw feed or ask me about raw feeding, it's just like, it's so exciting because, and it's one of these topics, and I'm sure every topic is like this, but for me, raw feeding is something that I'm constantly learning new things. So if you were to speak to raw feeding Kimberly in 2013, me in 2018, and then me today, I had completely different philosophies on how to feed my dogs because you're constantly learning. For some people, that can get overwhelming because they just basically want to be told, do this and go forward. And you can do that. But I love to be able to tailor everything to each dog while learning how to save money doing it, while learning how not to make it so that it takes me, 45 minutes to prepare their meals because everything's so particular. And I managed to do that. And it's fun. And I think that with my weird brain, I love puzzles and I love finding a piece of the puzzle. And I think that that's what I was intuitively led to, is something that, once I was able to let go and release things like, what am I supposed to do? Or what are dogs supposed to eat? And how am I supposed to feel right now? That's something that I'm curious to know how many people out there can relate to that, where maybe you got some sad news and so you started crying. But honestly, did you really feel like crying, or was it okay to go, oh, that's really sad, and just move on with your life? It's like, how many times do we step into a role because we've been programmed all of our lives to behave certain ways in certain situations? And once I've been able to just slowly release that and just say, I don't feel like doing this whole thing, all of a sudden ideas come to me and I'm able to find really cool resources and meet amazing people who I don't think I would have been able to be open to in the past. I was able to hear that calling.
Yeah. Well, and then also what's interesting to me about whenever you're able to really listen to your intuition, the universe does this interesting thing where you lose a lot of friends. And I've seen you go through that a couple times, and you've seen me go through that too.
Yes.
And it's like it starts clipping everyone away, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And then boom, it's like this new community just comes in for you. And I've seen that happen for
What
you
is
a
it
few
like
times too.
when God closes it, or when you close a door, or when a door is closed, God opens a window? I always get
Yeah.
that phrase wrong, but that's basically what it is. And I think about when I was learning about the law of attraction. And one thing someone told me, because I was dealing with this woman and she was just so horrible to work with, and I was just sort of like, can I attract her away, like, and not have to deal with her anymore? And the person was like, find one thing positive that you like about that person, and whenever you engage in that person or think about that person, focus on that one thing. And she said 1 or 2 things will happen. Either your relationship with that person will change, which is what had happened. By the time the woman left the company, we were great friends. And we started as just absolute drama-filled enemies. But the other thing will happen is that they'll leave your life. And it's funny to me because a lot of people today are talking about all the friends they lost in 2020 and 2021. And it's just like, I look at it as a reshuffling of the people in our space, because a lot of people no longer were on the same path we were on. We're no longer going to be walking this path with these people. So they went to their own path, and that's okay. I think that, I was talking to a friend who was like, I say she was stepping into the role of being sad for losing a friend. And it was like, are you really sad that you lost that friend? Because you never you did nothing but complain about this person the entire time I've known you. So are you really sad? And she thought about it and was like, no. The only reason why she was sad is because there was no like event that, preceded the ending, like a big fight or a conversation. There's no closure. And it's just like, no, that's just, you don't need any of that. This is just shuffling them in and out of your lives. And yeah, it can be shocking at times. I find in my experience is that when it's shocking, it's because the universe has been trying to make me shift away from this person and I have been fighting against. And so the universe is like, fine, then we'll do it this way. And that's when there's this huge Facebook explosion and,
Right.
comments and drama.
Angry fingers.
Yes, exactly. I'm on the computer typing furiously while I'm on the phone with a friend. Can you believe that he said that? And that's when that happens. But when I look back, I realize how long that friendship, like how many times that friendship truly, it was over. It should have ended. It was time to move on. I just was resistant to it. But yeah, I don't mind anymore. I appreciate the people in my life today. I think that they're there for a reason. And once I let go of what I thought I should do, what I thought my life should look like, it becomes more clear why people come into my lives, like what lesson they're there to teach me.
Right. And dogs can be the same way. I think dogs and cats and all sorts of animals come into our lives and they have something to teach us, whether it's patience. And I'm always joking around saying patience is stupid. But
I get it though. I want it right now.
That's right.
I totally get that.
My inner 5-year-old wants it now. Come on. But whether they're there to teach us patience, because they do, or they teach us unconditional love, or I think that they teach us responsibility and they can
empathy,
empathy,
the importance of living in the moment, unconditional forgiveness, dogs, because dogs forgive us for everything. I mean, I can walk into the room and accidentally step on the tip of my dog's tail. He's not going to be mad at me for 2 weeks for that. But, I don't return someone's phone call in a timely manner and they won't speak to me for months.
Don't bring up our issues. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just saying.
We've never had that problem. I'm just kidding.
Just saying. I don't know.
But it's true, though. Cats, on the other hand, they'll remember. And they'll make sure you remember for months down the road. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Dogs are that way where it's like 2 minutes later, they're just wanting to play with you.
Yeah,
you're like, I know that you stepped on my tail, but are we okay? You're not mad at me, are you?
Is everything okay with you? You seem a little off today. How can I help? I mean, the other night, I was feeling kind of crappy and just working through it. And Scout came and stood next to me and looked at me. And I just looked at him and said, nope, you're right, dude. I'm okay. I'm doing good. And then he just walked away and went and laid on his bed, put his head down. And so I was fine just like that. I mean, they are so special, just absolutely special. It's just a matter of opening ourselves up to that and then learning from it. Because I think about many of the things that I've learned, my mental health journey improved so much when I got dogs and started caring for dogs. When I started taking control of both their diet and their health, it's been a game changer for me. And what's funny is you started the discussion about raw feeding, that it's controversial. For anyone watching, if you've heard about raw feeding, you may have been told by a veterinarian or another pet professional, don't do it. You have to worry about this. You have to worry about that. And people are so discouraging. And I have had nothing but positive experiences. I can count the number of times a veterinarian has given me a hard time on one hand. And I've seen many veterinarians, and every single veterinarian, after I explain like what I do, why I do it, and answer questions that they have, they do a complete 180. And this includes a Bainfield vet who are notorious for like not being interested in anything holistic or natural. But, I think it's because, you get this level of confidence and you're sure that, that certainty that you have that this is the right thing I do. And you can speak to that. I mean, I think that when I'm insecure about something, I'm not sure about something, that's when I get a lot of pushback. But I've learned also that if I don't understand, that's okay. I can just say, I don't understand. And it goes a long way. And I always wonder when I hear from people who got a hard time from their veterinarian, not to discount their experience, but I always wonder, how did you have that conversation? Because I've had people passionately anti-raw. And an hour later, they would just basically, they're not going to now start telling everyone to feed raw, but they're just sort of like, I would not have a problem with you feeding raw. In fact, our Scout's oncologist, when we started his cancer journey, she wanted me to take him off of a raw diet. When we, he had his last appointment with her earlier this week, and or last week actually, and she was perfectly fine with raw because a year and a half later, he's still doing great.
Yeah.
She's just like, the proof is there. Do what you do.
And he still has that puppy energy. Like he's still excited to play and go for walks. And yeah.
Darn ball. Gosh, he loves that ball.
Oh, and that's another thing that's great with having dogs in your life. Like you were mentioning how they really help you through those times of being depressed. And, you don't want to get up in the morning, but you're responsible for this being now, this sentient, beautiful, wonderful, loving being who, is somehow there's either a compassionate human soul in that dog's body or an angel, but there's something special there that
definitely
requires.
Not human. Not human. I don't
know. I met a dog recently where I looked into his eyes. I'm like, there's a human soul in there.
It's really interesting because I feel like dogs have gone so much above us, considering that we look at them as below us or beneath us. It's that whole living in the moment and appreciating every moment. I mean, how much time have we forgotten or missed out on because we were either, stressing about the past or worrying about the future, and also stressing about things that we can't change and probably don't even matter to anyone else but us, and then worrying about things that don't come to pass. I mean, I had a friend years ago tell me that she likes to be prepared. The reason why she, worries about stuff is because she wants to be prepared. And I'm just sort of like, yeah, you're never going to be prepared. Like, I'm never going to be prepared for the feeling of losing a dog. Yeah. That's just a fact. When it happens, it's going to hit me like a load of bricks. So why would I prepare for that? Why would I hasten that? No, I'm going to appreciate right now, today, where everyone's healthy and happy and we're doing great. I'm not going to fast forward unnecessarily to a time that sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that is so important to be able to really enjoy all the different gifts that nature has to offer, that every day has to offer, because you're not going to live this day again. And one of the practices that I've been doing lately, because yesterday was not the best day for me. Like I just had all these weird things happening, so I kept trying to go back to, okay, what worked today, and I think dogs can be actually all animals, because like even the cat that I had a few years ago, just they are not afraid to show when they're happy. No animal is afraid to show when they're happy, and they will stretch out that moment as long as they can. And it's so beautiful. And it's definitely a life skill that we can all learn, because imagine how happy we would be if we were excited over a ball. And we had that excitement for hours.
I mean, man, it's so true. It's like, one thing I've done is and this is because of my dogs, is, when I'm having a bad day or if I'm having a bad moment, I stop, back up, and think about 5 cool things that just make me happy. And by the time I get to number 5, by the time I get to number 3, I'm grinning from ear to ear, whether it be physically or in my brain, where, okay, I can get this.
And they're probably related to your dogs too.
Yeah. At least half that list is going to be. And, another thing is I've learned to laugh at myself. So it's like when you have those conversations in your head, I'm notorious for coming up with the perfect comeback, like 5 months later. I'll be thinking of, and when he said that, or she said that, I should have said, and I will revisit that whole conversation. And, now I have these clever comebacks, and I'm just sitting here like, why am I doing this? This is like totally not good for my energy. It doesn't matter. This person has moved on with their life. They're not giving me 2 seconds of their thoughts, yet I am letting them live rent free in my head. And I got dogs. Why would I do that? And so I've learned to like laugh at myself. And I've learned that because my dogs, they're just, everything is just so happy for them. They're, like if I tell them, hey, let's go, and I'll spell it because at least, well, 3 dogs are outside because I can't do this with 4 dogs in the house, but OUTSIDE. If I say that out loud, everyone's like, what? Really? Really? And then when I open the door, they run out like they've never done it before. Like it's the best thing. And they're barking and looking around like they've never seen the yard before. And I'm just like, I mean, it cracks me up because it's like, as humans, what things do we look at with that much joy after we leave, childhood? I mean,
Right.
it's just like astounding. And so it's fun to have them teach me how to basically learn to find the joy in everything.
Right. Yeah. No, dogs are, yeah, they're definitely amazing when it comes to that. And dogs, I think they, we talked a lot about how they teach us the happiness, how to stay happy, but dogs go through that grieving,
Hmm.
go through a grieving stage too. Like I remember when our basset hound Sarah passed away, I had another dog named Lily, my Siberian Husky. She was like this beautiful. She was the best dog. Like she's, oh my god, I still miss that dog so much. But when Sarah had passed away, like right before she had passed away, she had been on the left side of our backyard, and Lily refused to go into
Hmm.
that area for weeks. And I remember we would get her ball and we'd throw it over there, and it was like there was this boundary that she would not cross, and she just refused to go there. And that was the last section of the yard that she saw her sister in,
Hmm.
that she saw her dog friend in. And but even when it comes to grief, like dogs, they know how to give themselves, I want to say, almost like the appropriate amount of time, but
Hmm.
they don't allow their grief to stop loving other people.
Yeah.
They may not be as excited when other people come in, like they'll still go up and greet, and they may jump up or whatever, but then they'll just go and they'll sit by themselves for a little bit, and they go through their own grieving process as well. And but they don't stay there, they don't
Yeah.
live there, and they still appreciate the different treats and whatnot. So I think that they have tremendous, I want to say, coping skills, because dogs,
I-
the intention of a dog is to be happy.
yeah. But I honestly think that, and I said this earlier, where I think they're just above us in so many ways. And with spirituality, I think that they've reached a place that we are still trying to figure out and trying to get to. Some humans are getting there, but most of us are not. And I think that they recognize like that there is no death. It's just a transition into another, you know, form. And so they are still connected with their siblings or friends and stuff, even though that they've crossed over. So I truly believe that my dogs still see Sydney, still hang out with Sydney, still talk to Sydney. I just can't see Sydney, and I'm not always open. And I think that if I were more open like you are, I think I would get more messages from all of my dogs that have passed and even family members and such, but I don't. And I keep the walls up, not all the way, but I keep them up only because I can't control who comes through. And, I've been caught off guard. We had years ago, a kid was speeding down our hill and crashed into a tree and died.
Mm.
And later that night, he walked across our porch. And I thought it was someone on, we live on 5 acres. We're far back from the road. So for someone to be walking on our porch is just sort of like, what, that's shocking. And it was dark, and they were coming from the Centennial Trail, which is pitch black at nighttime. So I'm like, who the heck is on our porch? And I can describe the person to you, what they were wearing, everything. And I was just like, Johan, someone's on the property. Someone just walked across the porch. And we went outside, he went outside, and I'm peeking up behind him. No one is there. And then I realized it was the kid.
Yeah.
And so I get that coming through. I don't mind my dogs coming through. I just don't want strangers coming through. But I think that all of us see and sense this, but it comes off as something out of the corner of our eye. And so we turn, but nothing's there. And so we dismiss it. Or there's a smell in the house, like cigarette smoke or something that should not be there and makes no sense. But again, we dismiss it. Oh, it's probably a memory. Or, I mean, we dismiss so much of it that's happening around us. And I think every time we do, we put another, the walls get taller and taller. But with our dogs, they don't fear that. And they see it as for what it is. And so that's why I think that they handle the passing a lot better. I think that, some dogs are going to, when they're really, really bonded with their sibling, it's going to be a hard transition. And maybe some of them, I've heard of like litter mates where one will pass and a couple weeks later, the second will pass along with them. But I've noticed with my dogs, when Blue passed on, their energy was down, but I honestly think that was in respect to me. It wasn't, they were mourning, but they just mourned differently. And the same thing with Sydney. They knew Sydney was dying. And I've learned to actually look how the dogs interact with each other. If all the dogs are sniffing in an area of one of my dogs, I'm going to like pay attention to that area, like what's going on there. Am I going to find a lump there? Or is there, and I found like injuries or something like, oh, they cut themselves. So let me treat this, because all the dogs were paying attention. So I think that they just have senses that are so beyond our own, and they are so accepting of them that's why they mourn differently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that the other reason that they are different in general and are able to like mourn differently or stay happy for hours is because they don't have that annoying prefrontal cortex that's wired the same way ours is, so it's easier for them to just get into those emotions and work through them. And plus they don't have, society going down their throat telling them
they're not on social media.
They're not on social. Well, I don't know. My dogs were all on social media. They just didn't know it.
It's like, because it's funny, because as a blogger and content creator, part of my job is dealing with comments, and some of them aren't so kind. But what I have found is that the less energy I give to what I would perceive as negative, the less I experience it. And in fact, I have comments today where some people are like, "Oh my God, that was so mean." And I was like, "Was it?" I just took it differently. I no longer read it that way. And so, and that now makes me go back and wonder all of I mean, I know some of them were just mean. There's no getting around that. But some of them is like, were they mean, or was me wearing these lenses perceiving them that way? And our dogs just they're not constantly second guessing themselves. And whereas we're just constantly like this thing going on overdrive, even when we're sleeping, it's just like da 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 da. And our dogs are just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and they also read energy though. So if there's someone that they don't like, that's something to pay attention to.
Oh yeah. Scout is very big at that. He does not like men who are walking by themselves. He doesn't mind if you're walking a dog, if you're jogging, if you're riding a bicycle, you're cool. But if you're just walking by yourself and I'm walking him, he will stop and stay. He's like, "What are you up to?" And I'm
like, "You hoodlum." I didn't know they allowed hoodlums in my neighborhood.
And of course, I'm looking at them like, do you have someone trapped in your basement? Because my dog is not feeling you. Because I've even had people like, "Oh, wow, he's looking at me." And then they'll walk towards him. He's backing up like, no. And he's not an aggressive dog, but in those situations, and I'm looking at these people like, did I just walk next to, someone on the America's Top 10 or most wanted type of thing? It's kind of creepy. And the other thing is that dogs can see spirits. So when Sydney was alive, she was very big at this where, and I think I called you because I was freaked out and I didn't know what to do. And you told me what to do. But we walked into the kitchen and Sydney stopped and then blocked me to keep me from going further into the kitchen. Her hackles went up and she stared at a spot and she just did a low, deep growl. And I was just like, "Thank you for visiting. Can you please leave now? We're freaked out." And then a few seconds later, she calmed down and then it was like nothing happened. And I was just like, did I make that up? Because it happened like that. Gosh, can you hear that?
I did hear that. Yeah.
It's someone's motorcycle going straight up. Oh, it's a whole bunch of motorcycles. Oh, anyway, but yeah, so I just think it's kind of cool. Dogs are just, they're my, guard dogs. I mean, if you come to my house, they'll just jump and bark at you and want loves and kisses. I hope that if you come to my house to hurt me, I'll see a different version of my dogs, but
Oh,
I
I'm sure.
thankfully have never had anyone coming to my home to hurt me. And they are just happy, dogs. But it is kind of cool just how they're what they see is out at life. And sometimes I'd be curious, it's like, what exactly do you see?
Right.
And would it freak me the hell out? This is like, are
Well,
we
you could probably tune into that if you wanted to. You could do a meditation. You could get into meditation and ask Scout, like, can I see things through your eyes? That'd be really interesting. That would make for an interesting blog post
I
around
know, right?
Halloween. Like, people would be all about that.
I know I did write one that I'm very proud of recently about how I use the law of attraction to raise healthier dogs. And it was so completely, I didn't even mean for it to get that long, but the law of attraction is not something you can explain in a few sentences or even
Right.
a few paragraphs. But it was so much fun to just explain just how I look at it. And it's basically everything we've been talking about, focusing on the positive and not focusing, if you don't want it, then don't focus on it. And by that, I don't mean like, I don't ignore the fact that my dog has cancer. He has cancer, but I am always going to think of him as a dog living with cancer, not dying of cancer. And I'm not going to put tons of energy into, like if I'm stressed and upset, I don't use that time to start researching things about cancer. I wait until I'm in a good mood and I'm just curious and want to learn. And then I go and get that type of information. And, but mostly it's about really making yourself open to the information that's coming out there and not second guessing. Like, for instance, when I decided to stop doing chemo, I got an email from a company that I used to buy. Someone recommended the company to me when Scout was first diagnosed, and I ordered a few of their supplements. They're like great for building the immune system. And then I just stopped and just, I didn't order anymore. But I got this email out of the blue after not receiving an email from this company for probably a year. I got an email that they were offering these supplements, which are expensive, for buy one, get one free. And so I bought 4 bottles of them and I was like, I guess, I decided to take him off of chemo, and this is the email that I got. I'm going to listen to this instead of second guessing it or thinking, oh, it's just a coincidence. I'm going to get these supplements because I would not have bought them on my own because they're insanely expensive. But for a BOGO, hell yeah. And now my dog gets those supplements. And it's just little things like it's very interesting. If you just relax and just not overthink it, it all comes to you. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the end of our show. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for joining us. It was so wonderful to catch up with you. And, every time we talk, it's like I learn a little bit more, not just about what you're up to with your dogs, but also the new fascinating things that you've learned about raw feeding and supplements and things like that. So I want to thank you for all the work that you do in the pet community, because I think it's important work. I wish more people were doing it ethically and integrity like you do, because there's some people who don't, but we're not going to get into that. But I've known you for a long time, and I know that you're truly passionate about this, and I know that you really are. You do have a heart, not just for helping animals, of course, but helping people to understand and to make that transition. Yeah. So real quick, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at keepthetailwagging.com. I'm also Keep the Tail Wagging on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Raw Feeder Life, and I'm quite proud of that because I can't believe no one else got that one, but I got it. It's mine because someone else took Keep the Tail Wagging on Instagram. But I'm Raw Feeder Life there, and I also do TikToks, believe it or not the dances, but I do little TikToks, and so I'm Raw Feeder Life on TikTok as well. Fantastic. Oh, and you can find me here on YouTube as Kimberly Gauthier.
Awesome. All right, guys, go find Kimberly. Go stalk her the internet way, not in the real life creepy way. Follow her on Instagram, on Facebook. And if you are a pet lover, you will absolutely love the work that Kimberly is doing. So be sure that you stay tuned here to the UPRN Network. We have an amazing lineup for you today. If you're into psychic and paranormal things, guess what? Tuesday is all about that. You've come to the right place. Be sure that you tune your dial into 105.3 FM, or no, I'm advertising the wrong station. 105.7 FM, Tuesday 6 p.m. Central, for another episode of the Guiding Echo Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.